The iPhone SE 3 is the last budget phone made by Apple, unlike its successor, the iPhone E, which I can no longer consider budget-friendly. Not only that, but it's also the last one that reminds us of what phones looked like almost 10 years ago. It has the same body as the iPhone 8, but the brain of an iPhone 13. I found it while cleaning out my drawers and instantly remembered how much I enjoyed using this phone. So I decided to see if in 2026 it will be a pleasure to use it or if I will hate my life. To help you better understand my point of view, let me give you some context. I currently have an iPhone 13 Pro. I delayed upgrading because I want a foldable. I hope that this year the miracle will happen and Apple will actually produce one. But anyway, the iPhone SE was my previous phone. I bought it because at the time, for the same price, I had to choose between an iPhone 14 Pro or this SE and an iPad mini. So I made my choice, a phone that felt strange and old even in 2022, but which still appealed to me because somehow brought back some features that today's phones no longer have. However, the fantasy didn't last long and a year later I bought an iPhone 13 Pro, which, if you think about it, is somewhat of a downgrade considering it came out the previous year. With this idea in mind, I set out today to see if a phone from a theoretically newer lineup still feels okay to use on a daily basis, knowing that I have no issues yet with my 13. The first thing that scared me when I decided to use it was the memory. How am I going to fit all my stuff when it only has 64 gigabytes, I thought. Well, I was wrong. The version I have, although I had forgotten, it has 128 gigabytes, which is exactly the same as my current phone. I can't complain considering that I live with it every day, so I was pleasantly surprised to see that it had overcome the first obstacle in the real world. The second surprise I had was that I was able to upgrade it to iOS 26, although it shouldn't have been a surprise considering that it was released in 2022 and still receive updates for the next 2 or 3 years. However, seeing a phone that looks so old with a chin that clearly needs cosmetic surgery, with an operating system that feels so futuristic, feels unreal. One thing that disappointed me a little when I bought it was the lack of Magsafe. I use quite a few accessories that require this, so it would have been a shame if I suddenly couldn't use them anymore. Fortunately, I found a solution back then for this, that I still have. A case. This solved my Magsafe problem, and the phone itself, even though it doesn't have the fastest wireless charging with only 7.5 watts, at least I was able to continue using my accessories. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The form factor. It is small, but using it reminded me why I like this phone so much. It offers a feeling that today's phone can no longer deliver. The presence of a physical button makes it feel more natural to use. Although yes, even that is fake because it's just a haptic feedback, but pressing it to close the apps is honestly much faster. Not to mention Apple Pay. I take my phone out of my pocket, my hand is already there, and by the time I get to the POS, the payment is already confirmed, much faster than the Face ID. However, there are also disadvantages. Major ones, in fact. The camera and the battery. Look, I don't use my phone's camera much, so for my case, the main camera, and the only one in this case, still performs decently. But the lack of a telephoto and a wide-angle lens is really noticeable. It will be quite difficult for me to get used to the idea that I no longer have an all-around camera in my pocket and in case I need it, I can use it. And now, the pièce de résistance, the battery. It sucks. Badly. This is honestly one of the biggest reasons why I couldn't go back to this phone. I have to charge it 3, 4, 5 times a day depending on how much I use it. One good thing, depending on how you look at it, is that because the screen is so small, you don't use the phone as much. I consume quite a lot of media content on my phone when I watch YouTube or even movies, but with this phone I couldn't do that. That's why when I bought it, I also bought the iPad mini. I knew it wasn't designed to do all the things we expect from a phone today. Its performance is extraordinary, but unfortunately I don't think you'll find anything to push its limits to the max. So, the conclusion. Can you still use an iPhone SE today? Honestly, yes, I really enjoyed using it again. The way it limits you in how you use your phone, but at the same time it can do pretty much everything a modern phone can do. But the biggest problem for me is the battery. I cannot stand knowing that my phone is about to die at any moment. That means I have to carry an external battery with me. That means that suddenly the super small and very compact phone turns into something bigger than any modern phone with a battery that lasts all day. And it kind of loses its charm.